All right. So, happy 2019. Happy New Year to everyone. It's been a while since, I made the last video on Destiny. And if you recall, that was about 5 months ago. My apologies. I'm a little under the weather tonight, but trusting the Lord, that healing is the children's bread, and He'll give us the grace to get through this next video here on Destiny. And so, the previous video was talking about what the meaning of destiny is, and why it's important to you, and why it's important to God. And I did say that the next one after that, which is this video, we're going to be looking at some examples of destiny in the Bible. So we're going to be looking at five scenarios or incidents of where people lost their destinies in the Bible, and what their reaction was, and their reactions would go to let you know how important destiny is, and really what this how real this whole concept is. So the five examples we're going to be looking at, or actually the first one would be the story of Jacob and Esau. With Esau, we know, was his father's favorite, that's Isaac, and Jacob was his mother, Rebecca's favorite. Esau was a man of the field. Jacob was more domestic, He stayed home. He knew his way around domestic things, and, just was the mother's favorite. So, um, the Bible account has it that when Isaac was old, and it was time for him to give the blessing, actually, of the firstborn to Esau. So he called Esau in one day, and he told him, because Esau was a man of the field, to go get his best kill, that's the best animal out there, to prepare soup, and just come and offer it to him, so he could bless him. So Rebecca overheard this conversation, and then goes and plans, rather gives the information to Jacob, and they conspire to trick Isaac into giving Jacob the blessing that was meant for Esau. So Jacob goes, prepares a meal, and Rebecca, works, plans the whole, strategy. Because because Esau was more of a hairy guy, so Jacob was disguised by his mother to appear as Esau, because Isaac couldn't tell the difference, since his sight was failing him due to age. So Jacob goes in there, to his father Isaac, and claims the blessing of the firstborn. And then when it's time for Esau to go in and get blessed, he approaches Isaac, or rather he goes to talk to him, and Isaac says, well, I've already passed the blessing to your brother. And he says, no, but I'm Esau. And Isaac says, well, I gave it to Jacob then. And it was too late at that point. Nothing could be done. Esau was in so much regret, and he just was in so much disbelief, and it got to the point that he was harboring even murderous feelings towards his brother Jacob. And because he knew the blessing that was in the birthright of the firstborn, and that was his destiny. That was God's program for his life. So there we go, there we have it. That's a case there, or a story of destiny being lost. Our next example will be that one of Samson. So as we know, Samson in the Bible actually was picked by God to deliver his people Israel from the hands of the Philistines. And so when Samson was of age, and he was, actually in the forefront, defending his people against the Philistines, and gaining the respect of everyone, he falls in love with a woman by the name of Delilah. And sorry, and it was against God's will, actually, for Delilah, for Samson, excuse me, to fall in love with a woman of that race, of that tribe. Delilah was actually of a tribe that was close to the Philistines. She wasn't an Israelite. She wasn't a Hebrew. So she was not a Hebrew. So she conspires with the Philistines to trap Samson, and or rather to get information from him as to the secret of his strength. And then Samson, in ignorance, then lets her know. He gets fooled into letting her know the secret of his strength, which is his hair. And then she then traps him to where she's able to cut off his hair. When he lets his guard down, and then he gets captured by the Philistines, and he gets enslaved, and there it is. He lost his destiny. Now that was not God's will for him. Even though God had mercy on him in the end and blessed him with his last bit of strength, where he pulled down the pillars in the temple. But the fact of the matter is that that's not what God had intended for Samson. He intended for him to have a future where he was going to deliver his people, possibly be, maybe the next king, a ruler in Israel. And this gives us an example here of how destiny has been traded and lost as a result of disobedience. Our next example here will be the one of Reuben. And as we know, Reuben was the firstborn son of Leah and Jacob. And Bible account has it that Reuben had slept with his father, that's Jacob's handmaid, house help. This had angered Jacob, and as a result, he gave the blessing of the firstborn, or the birthright, to Joseph instead of Reuben. So that's another example here of destiny, which was in the birthright of the firstborn being lost as a result of disobedience again. Our next one is Gehazi. Well, and Gehazi happens to be the servant of Elisha. Elisha was a powerful prophet of old, and people came from afar, to see Elisha for all kinds of issues. There was a military commander by the name of Naaman that came from afar to see Elisha, and because he was a leper. So Elisha had instructed him to go bathe in the river Jordan. Naaman followed his instructions, and he was healed. He came back, to offer his gratitude to Elisha. Elisha, turns him down and says that he didn't need anything from him, and just blessed him. And Naaman went on about his way. But then Gehazi goes behind Elisha's back to go after Naaman, and then convinces Naaman he just makes up, he just frames up a story and convinces Naaman to give those gifts to him. So Gehazi collects those gifts and goes back to the camp. But meanwhile, Elisha had a word of knowledge from the Holy Spirit, and he's in the know that Gehazi had been up to no good, or had went after Naaman to collect the gifts. So he then questions Gehazi. Gehazi denies the fact that he went after Naaman. Now, due to what Gehazi had done, Elisha was angered, and he cursed Gehazi. He cursed him with leprosy down to the second generation. Imagine that. Gehazi could have probably been the next prophet of old. Maybe he would have had a double anointing of what Elisha had, because Elisha got a double from Elijah. And then who knows what Gehazi's destiny would have been. But he lost it there as a result of greed. Greed and just ulterior motives. Our final example will be the one of Eli. Eli was a high priest in Israel, and he was the second to the last high priest until Samuel came. And then after that, Israel was going to go into a system of government where they were going to have kings. Eli's sons were they were ungodly. Ungodly. They were sexually immoral, and they just were not good examples in society. Basically, they just lived wayward lives. Eli, seeing this, he did not correct them. He didn't commit them to God, because what God had expected of him as a father was to commit his children, his sons, to God, and trust God to change their hearts towards him. But Eli did not do that. Instead of that, he condoned their behavior as a father, and all in the name of love, he condoned that behavior and tried to cover up for them. But guess what their punishment was? The consequence was that God cut off him and his family. They all died. Yes, Eli and his sons, they perished. So there we have it again. Who knows what their destiny could have been? Who knows? But that's an example there, a sad ending, of destiny being lost as a result of disobedience. Now, what is the takeaway from all these 5 accounts, all these 5 stories? The first one is that disobedience to God can lead to a loss of destiny. We've seen that in all 5 examples. If the Lord has laid it on your heart, what your calling is in life, it's in your own best interest, to really follow that calling. We will talk again. We will address this in another video of how you can tell that God is impressing it on your heart, or how to recognize what some signs are of what you are called to do here in this life on earth, of what your destiny is. Our second lesson here to be learned in all 5 stories is that they all suffered some kind of consequence. Yes, when you don't walk in your calling in life, there's always a consequence. A lot of times, people might think that they were called to do something when that's not what their calling is. There's a consequence in that. You're missing out on so many blessings that you could have enjoyed if you had walked in your actual calling. The third one is that the third lesson we can learn from all 5 of the examples is that most of them had great destinies, or rather, most of them had great destinies or good life purposes. In other words, if they had obeyed God, they wouldn't have ended the way they did. They had great futures. They all had great futures, all of them. Esau, Samson, Reuben, Gehazi, Eli, all had great futures, but they lost it as a result of disobedience and carelessness. Yes. The last lesson to be taken from all 5 stories is their destinies affected those of their offspring or other people. In other words, our destinies are connected to other people's destinies. There are some people that are not going to get to fulfill their destinies because we did not fulfill ours. In other words, we are all connected. So please, when you get the unction or the inspiration, of what your calling is in life, just know that it's very important that you follow that call, that you answer to that prompting, that's that urge, that you follow that urge of what you were placed down here on earth for, because that's God speaking to you. And that's where you're going to find fulfillment, joy, blessings, more than you can ever imagine. Security, peace, happiness, everything that you want, good health. It's all within your calling, your destiny. Yes. So that's it for this short video here, and hope this has been a blessing to you all. So, and just stay tuned until the third video, where I'll be going more into possibly more about, just why everyone should be after destiny, and why everyone really is after destiny without even knowing it. All right. So God bless you all, and shalom. Take care.